The Madden 23 beta dropped, and it's actually not half bad. We're going to dive into it and all the new features we know so far and my first impressions with the game. But before we jump into it, I have one favor to ask you. If you could slide down beneath the video and smash that subscribe button, we are so close to 1K. The spotlight feature this year is called FieldSense. FieldSense is the new gameplay system which aims to make the game even more realistic by making situations more dynamic, trying to get away from the hard animation-based system of the past. Now, this doesn't mean there won't be animations in the game, obviously. In fact, there are a noticeable amount of new animations. What this does mean is that the dev team is trying to eliminate moments like in past Maddens when you get sucked into a tackle animation despite being clearly out of reach. Y'all know what I'm talking about. So far, I'll say from what I've played, there does seem to be a lot of new animations and different ways for collisions and player interactions to happen. Another key part of FieldSense is the Cut 360 feature, which is said to give players more accuracy and control over ball carrier movements. Through my first 10 games or so, I'd say it seems like you have less control over ball carrier moves. Everything feels slower and things like the Jurtle don't cut nearly as hard. I will say though, the new systems do have a decent level of depth, so it's possible in our initial testing, my team and I just didn't fully grasp the feature. The last and most exciting piece of the FieldSense puzzle is the new passing. The new passing system adds an accuracy meter when throwing the ball, as well as a cursor near the receiver. Using L2, the cursor can be moved freely to place the ball exactly where you want it. Now, I have to admit, I hated the idea of this feature when it was announced. I also hated this feature the first few games. But after getting used to it, it actually seems extremely promising. You're able to locate the ball in spots we've never been able to with pass leading. True back shoulder throws are finally possible. You can also do things like place the ball perfectly to the sideline on corner routes where only your wide receiver has a chance to play the ball. I actually had to ask my buddy Warhawk if you could even throw a lob. At first, I didn't even think it was possible. You can still throw lobs, touch passes, high balls, low balls. It's all just done in new ways, which takes some getting used to after years of just simply tapping the button. When the early access for the game drops, I'll be dropping tutorials right here on this channel to help y'all get adjusted quickly and start dominating online. Make sure you hit the subscribe button and tap that notification bell to stay tuned in for that. FieldSense isn't the only improvement noticeable in the beta. Another key feature that's a noticeable improvement is the graphic. During our playtest, someone in our Discord call said it actually looks like next gen. I think that sums it up pretty well. Last year, the graphics didn't really look much better than the previous gen. This year, however, the changes are noticeable and very welcome. I mean, another thing we've seen during the beta are new offensive formations and playbook tweaks. Some people will get confused as popular formations like 3-3-5, 3-3-5 wide, and double A gap have been renamed. While some formations have been merely renamed, make no mistake, there are new formations in there as well. Speaking of defense, there actually is some this year. So far with what I've seen, DBs do a much better job of playing their zones and breaking on the ball. Hard flats actually might even be a bit too crazy right now, as they seem to turn their hips and sink back on balls that should be over their heads. AI defenders still swat the ball though, even on play ball. However, when a ball is tipped, if another defender is anywhere near the ball, it does seem like they always catch it. So that's kind of nice, but you know, interceptions, Clint. The user also seemed comically slow. Given the flats now lock up the sideline, the middle of the field saw far more passes during our playtest. Normally, you wouldn't want to test a comp player's user, but we were all able to throw at each other's faces and couldn't get a pick animation. I wouldn't worry too much as the user last year also started off too slow, but I thought I'd mention it as something I noticed. And in general right now, defense seems to be in a good spot. It seems like it'll be challenging to move the ball this year, given the tighter coverage and quick pressure. And I'm a fan of that. The pressure in this game is the only part so far holding this game back. While I do think a faster stock pass rush is more realistic and overall fine, what's present right now is not representative of what we see on Sundays. During my testing, I tried blocking 8 in near and was only able to get 3 full seconds in the pocket against the stock 4-man rush. It's impossible to get the ball downfield given the 2 to 3 seconds every play. There's never a single play where the blocking just holds up. Is the clock for a QB in the NFL fast? Sure. But there are certainly plays where the blocking holds up and QBs are able to move the ball downfield in real life. Sliding, double teaming, and IDing the mic also seems to have little to no effect. Not even max protecting will give you enough time to get out of a 3rd and 20. And the development team seemed to be so scared of escape artists that they made it nearly impossible to roll out of the pocket as well. Offensive tackles are probably the worst they have ever been. Literal cones on the field. Kind of embarrassing when the game's lead producer was an NFL offensive lineman. Well, sort of. Overall though, Madden 23 looks to be in a good spot, at least on next gen. It seems many of these additions are set to be absent from the last gen versions of the game as devs push players onto the current generation of consoles. So far, my first impressions have been overwhelmingly positive. I feel like the game has an insane amount of promise, especially given the depth of some of the new features. I'm excited to keep learning more about the new passing system and dialing in my offense. While you're waiting for 23 to drop, why don't you check out this breakdown I did on JP Kane's Madden Bowl offense, so you can get your offense dialed in too.